right, so now that we've explored some of the encoding options and some of the output file options for building your payload, I'd like to explain a little bit more about how the database works and some of the other features that are there for enhanced productivity. For instance, I can create workspaces. By default, I have one named default. So let's look at the help section. I can list my workspaces. I can switch from one to the other, which of course is very handy if you're working on several projects at a time and you want to keep them all straight. Add a workspace, delete all, and rename. So let's create, since we are going to be doing our pen testing work on the Metasploitable vulnerable VM, let's create a workspace called Metasploitable. Now if I run my workspace command, I should see it listed. And notice when I create a workspace, it automatically switches me to that. Renaming and deleting are fairly straightforward ideas. If you recall, I also ran the DB status command to make sure that I'm connected to my database. And as a reminder, you have to, I can't do that from this. I can make another command shell. One thing I'd like to show people also is shortcuts. So if you're within the command shell in Kali, Shift-Control-T will open up another terminal as a tab, and it makes life a lot easier, so I can just switch back and forth. And Control page up down, or sorry, Control page down, Control page up will let you switch between the tabs. So if you're really like using the keyboard and you feel like the mouse slows you down, then some of these shortcuts are really handy to know about. Okay, so the point I was trying to make again was, don't forget to run your Postgres database startup. Once we install some other features, then we'll see a couple of other areas that we want to remember to start services. You can certainly put these in a startup script in your RC, or rather your init.d directory, etc init.d. But generally, starting them up manually is not a big deal, and it helps to make sure that you're only enabling the resources that you need at the time that you're doing your work. Okay, so I know my database is there. I've got a workspace defined. What are some of the other features that I can explore? If we do the help command, we'll get a review of our database backend commands. Notice that if I'm running an instance of Metasploit and I'm not connected, I can run the dbconnect command. So if we run the -h, basically I give a username and a database name, maybe a IP address that might be required depending on what kind of path names you've set up. Then I can also do other things like look at my hosts that are in the database. I can look at whatever loot, which is any files or other components that were gathered during a scan or some other kind of exploit. I might have notes. I might also look at my services that are defined. My database should be empty right now because I don't have anything defined. No hosts, no services. But we'll see shortly once we use the import command. I can, for instance, run a scan in Nessus and then use the db import to pull that information into Metasploit. Now you can do this from the command line based Metasploit, the console, MSF console. You can also do it from the web-based community edition. You can also do it from Armitage. So we have 3 different options. You can run an Nmap scan directly from the from Metasploit console, and that will pull that data into the database, or it will suck it in. Maybe is a better way to put that. Any vulnerabilities that were discovered will be listed in the database. So this is a pretty nice command line interface to this database tool. And let's not forget the need for doing backups of your information, so the DB export command will help you with that. It's pretty self-explanatory. We can run the help screen, and we see we just pick a format, XML or PWDump, and then we pick a file name and a path to a file name. So it's pretty straightforward. And one other thing to point out before we move on to the next topic is the, for instance, I ran the hosts command. We know that there's nothing there because I haven't done a scan yet. But hosts, services, and some of the other commands will let you select which columns you want to view. So I can use the -C option for this. So for instance, if I want to run hosts -C, maybe I only want the address and the OS flavor. And it may not like the space there. Let me try that again without the space. There we go. Simple error. But does not parse the space, so be aware of that. Now I can kind of simplify what I'm looking for. And depending on what I'm running, which command I'm running, for instance, I'm running services. Maybe I only want to know the host and the port number, for instance. I can also, if I have any credentials that have been captured as part of a scan or some exploit, that would also be saved. I can then sort those columns as needed. So as you can see, the database has a lot of neat features, and once you get familiar with it, getting around from the command line, as we're doing here, can be a very efficient and a great way to save time as you're doing your different tasks.